New information in the Hebron mosque massacre surfaces as bloodshed continues in the occupied territories. The death toll rises from a train accident in South Africa, and warm weather in the Great Lakes region has people treading lightly. Headline News, I'm Lyn Vaughn. An Israeli army commander for the West Bank says security was lax at the Hebron mosque where dozens of Muslims were massacred last month. Major General Danny Yatem says only one of 6 soldiers and police officers assigned to the mosque was at his post on February 25th. He told a panel investigating the attack several officers had overslept and that if all of them had been at their post, the massacre might have been prevented. The massacre has set off a wave of violence in the occupied territories. 2 more people were killed today in clashes. The killings have also jeopardized peace talks, as Bill Delaney reports.
2 Palestinians shot by Israeli soldiers at a roadblock from the Gaza Strip Tuesday, one of whom, at least, officials said, likely was headed for Israel to carry out revenge for the massacre of Palestinians in Hebron. Few Israelis doubt such an attack is coming sooner or later. This as the Palestinian Islamic fundamentalist group Hamas issued a leaflet warning Jews at 5 settlements to evacuate by March 15th or face suicide car bombs. Few Israelis imagine the reinvigorated Palestinian uprising in the West Bank and Gaza Strip is the end of violence in the wake of the Hebron massacre.
We are like in a Greek tragedy. We are now waiting for some kind of Arabic revenge.
No one's more worried about it, Palestinian sources say, than PLO chairman Yasser Arafat, who fears a revenge attack against Jews could make it impossible for Israel to further crack down on extremist Jewish settlers. Without such measures, the peace process cannot be revitalized, no matter how much the PLO wants it to be, says Arafat advisor Dr. Ahmed Tibi.
Security for Palestinian civilians. Now, these extremists should be disarmed. They can now enter into a Palestinian city, Hebron, Nablus, Ramallah, and massacre people. They can do it exactly now.
Israeli Foreign Minister Shimon Peres says the key is to stick to the already agreed upon Israel-PLO pact.
Implementing the agreement will serve as the most dramatic change, more than any additive, or more than any request. Once this will be done, we can go on and negotiate about the second stage.
The second stage, which already calls for confronting the issue of Jewish settlements as soon as possible. Many analysts say for both Israelis and Palestinians to find their way out of never-ending violence, there's no other map but the peace process already underway.
The target for us is to be like to turn to be Yugoslavia or Lebanon or something like this.
In the meantime, amid continuing violence in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, the clock keeps ticking on the possibility of something even worse. Bill Delaney, CNN, Jerusalem.
A NATO plane was hit by anti-aircraft fire over Croatia today and had to make an emergency landing. 3 passengers were slightly hurt. The plane was helping monitor the UN no-fly zone in Bosnia. The Croatian government blames rebel Serb forces for the attack. In Sarajevo, residents marked a milestone today as the trolleys rolled for the first time in nearly 2 years. UN armored personnel carriers escorted the trams to protect them from sniper fire. An Indian jet crashed into a parked Russian plane at New Delhi's International Airport today. Various reports say between 5 and 10 people were killed, 7 injured. Airport police say the private Indian jet was on a training mission and seemed to just fall out of the sky. A series of explosions engulfed a Zurich, Switzerland neighborhood in fire and smoke after a train of gasoline tankers derailed. 2 people were seriously hurt, 3 people are missing. Flames engulfed 4 homes, melted the railroad tracks, and destroyed several cars. Gasoline leaked into sewers, and explosions blew manhole covers off the streets. Officials in South Africa are searching for clues in one of the country's worst train disasters. 63 people were killed, hundreds more injured when a commuter train derailed near Durban. Mark Austin reports.
It was a disaster that turned this picturesque green valley in Natal into a scene of carnage. The train was packed with early morning commuters. At least 10 coaches were derailed as it rounded a bend. For the rescuers, access to the crash site was difficult. The most seriously injured were ferried to hospital by a fleet of South African Air Force helicopters. Others were carried up hillside tracks to waiting ambulances. Rescuers tried desperately to save lives on the way. Survivors said many passengers hanging out of open doors were flung onto the embankment and then crushed as the carriages fell on top of them. Many told me the train was going too fast.
The train is going very fast. Now if it's going very fast, the driver puts the train off.
And an immediate fear of the authorities in this volatile area was that this was an act of sabotage. In a region where scores of people die each week in political violence, the hope is this is not another murderous attack in advance of April's elections. Officially, investigators say they are not ruling anything out, but privately they suggest there's little evidence so far of sabotage. It seems this terrible tragedy is the result of human error or mechanical failure, rather than anything more sinister. Mark Austin, ITN, Durban.
Mailing a letter may cost 3 cents more next year if a rate proposal announced today by the U.S. Postal Service is approved by an independent rate commission. The post office says the hike would increase postage costs for the average consumer by $8 to $9 each year. Stamp prices last went up in 1991. Postmaster General Marvin Runyon says his agency has made the rate proposal as small as inflation would allow. Sources tell CNN President Clinton has tapped a man known as the ultimate Washington lawyer to become the new White House counsel. Mr. Clinton has scheduled an announcement in 2.5 hours. Lloyd Cutler, who served in the same post under President Carter, will replace Bernard Nussbaum, who resigned Saturday. It was disclosed Nussbaum met with Treasury Department officials to discuss matters related to the Whitewater affair. The independent counsel appointed to look into the Whitewater investigation is discouraging Congress from holding its own hearings. Robert Fisk says such hearings would pose a serious risk to his investigation. Nevertheless, Republicans who pressed to have the independent counsel named are still demanding Congress look into the matter.
The other side pushed very hard for the White House to appoint a special counsel. That happened. The special counsel is looking into this case. The best thing we can do is let that process continue and run its course.
The Congress has a critical job to do here. That job is to not brush this sordid affair under the carpet. After all, part of the job of the Congress is to investigate when there is a hint of scandal attached to public officials and public funds. This is called oversight. The sum total of the Republican effort in the Whitewater affair has been to try to get the Congress to do its job.
President Clinton is trying to refocus attention on what he's calling the people's business. This morning he spoke to the American Society of Association Executives about his health care reform proposals. On Capitol Hill, 2 former First Ladies are urging members of Congress to include mental health care and substance abuse treatment in any reform package.
We pay for the welfare system, for housing, in the housing department, for homelessness, and in the criminal justice system, lost productivity, the healthcare system. People with mental illness and substance abuse problems have more physical illnesses. So you save in that way, not to talk about the human cost of suffering.
Also on Capitol Hill today, the House Ways and Means Committee is expected to vote on an alternative to President Clinton's health proposal. It would grant universal coverage by expanding Medicare. British police say they have discovered an 8th body in a Gloucester home. Its owner, Frederick West, has been charged with killing 3 young women. Their remains were found buried in the backyard. One is identified as West's own 16-year-old daughter. Police say they will continue searching for other bodies in as many as 4 locations. 3 of the 5 astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia are getting a half-day off to enjoy the view from 184 miles above the Earth. The 2-week mission means each crew member will get 2 4-hour breaks from the scores of medical and engineering experiments. Columbia is scheduled to land a week from Friday in Florida. Warmer weather is finally reaching some parts of the northern United States. The thaw means Coast Guard rescue crews on the Great Lakes are being kept very busy. Mary Curran reports.
Stanley Foster and his buddies aren't fishing today.
You guys standing back tugging.
They know for a fact they'd be treading on thin ice.
Guys, they didn't want to talk to you. They're out the Michigan Marine Salvage. They're out there right now pulling this guy's RV out. He went through last night.
Others in the Great Lakes region missed or ignored warning signs, giving Coast Guard crews constant work. Last month in Saginaw, Michigan, 2 men drowned when their snowmobiles broke through ice. And just 2 weeks ago in Toledo, Ohio, 11 fishermen found themselves stranded on an ice drift. In total, 10 people have lost their lives in Great Lakes waters this winter.
Familiarity breeds contempt. So these people have been out there all winter and they don't really stop and think about the weather that we've had. It's rained, it's been warm, so there could be some rotten spots. The ice is deteriorating.
The problem? Ice melts from both top and bottom. Breakaways can occur without warning.
If we get a strong wind from the west, it'll break off right at these cracks right here and send whole sheets of ice out into the lake.
At nearly $800 per hour, these rescues are costing the Coast Guard plenty. Heading from rescue to rescue is frustrating because while they can regulate safe boating during summer months, there's no jurisdiction to keep people off the ice, regardless of the danger.
Really nothing you can do. If they want to take their lives in their own hands, it's their decision.
The Michigan Department of Natural Resources, which administers fishing licenses, says fishermen are not to blame. They're tackling another problem.
Majority of all the snowmobile fatalities are alcohol related. Not that it's a completely alcohol factor, but it is a factor. And we are doing more patrols targeting that type of an operation.
During training missions, Coast Guard officials stress that no ice is safe ice. If you head out anyway, take along safety precautions.
If he's ready, his chance of survival is probably 100% better, because if you're unprepared and you don't have the right equipment, it's a matter of life and death.
With this winter's death toll at an all-time high, a number of Great Lakes agencies are working together to spread the safety message. So far, the warnings don't seem to be strong enough, because even those with near misses still head back out.
Oh, they like their fishing. I probably do the same thing.
Mary Curran, for CNN, Mount Clemens, Michigan.
Coming up next, in dollars and cents, the latest numbers from Wall Street. And later, one person's junk becomes a real treasure in the right setting.
Temperatures will continue to be cooler in the Midwest. Mild weather will hold on for one more day in the Southeast and for most of California.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
No, honey, I did not try the new sinus medicine you packed because all of this pressure and congestion again, nothing ever seems to help. Hon, I have sinus stuff. Oh, it's Dayquil sinus.
New Vicks Dayquil Sinus Pressure and Congestion has the same 2 medicines found in the #1 sinus prescription brand.
2 medicines?
New Dayquil Sinus Pressure and Congestion, the anytime non-drowsy congestion stuffy head sinus pressure so you can breathe easier medicine.
I always did like breathing.
Also sinus pressure and pain formula.
It's the best time in 2 decades to take profits from conventional investments and to buy gold. That from Doug Casey, renowned investor and best-selling author. In his new book, Crisis Investing for the Rest of the 90s, Casey has